Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Well, that was an interesting weekend, was it not?
Well, it was. We suspected that it may happen at any time. And, you know, I saw the media, some of the questions. Well, the president said he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure. And then within hours, we were bombing Iran. At some point during that time, he changed his mind. That was almost verbatim one of the real statements that I saw on some of the most ridiculous coverage of the whole thing. And it was, well, or maybe he wasn't going to tell you. You know, maybe you don't say, hey, in about an hour, we're going to start. But you look at the logistics of it all, of getting something together. The Wall Street Journal had a piece on how this thing came to be. And it really was a matter of timing. You and I had an off-air discussion about, well, you know, they're not going to do it during the day. And then I joked, actually, my advice would be do it during the day because it would be a surprise element. And it wasn't because of a surprise element. It was because of opportunity of where the leadership in Iran was at the time, and they believed if they went after those targets in those moments, they could accomplish taking out a great number of them, and that's what happened.
The synchronization, when you look at that, because you had bombers coming in from Israel.
Right.
You had, you know, the ships in the Arabian Sea. Mm-hmm. You had stealth bombers coming in.
Yeah.
So everything was timed to hit at the same time.
Yeah.
That synchronization, I was watching some analysis on that. It is mind-boggling how they put that together. And then the other things that they used, for example, I saw one report that we actually got into their defense radar and hacked into their radar.
Right. Yeah.
And then sending those very, very hundreds of those cheap drones that look like massive amounts of aircraft coming in that were just cheap drones that they would, you know, that's what appeared on many of their radar screens.
Right.
But actually hacking into their radar screens to confuse them, and then the beginning of the synchronization of taking out so much of their air defense at the exact same time.
Right, yeah.
And that's why you didn't see, and we don't know how the Americans were killed. We don't know if that was at one of the bases
right.
that were hit.
I initially just assumed Bahrain, but I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Didn't say.
I thought about that, too. I thought Bahrain, because a missile actually landed there. They've got thousands of ballistic missiles.
Right.
And many of them on mobile launch sites.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you're going to get some of those that would be, you know, shot at Israel and then in other Arab countries, which did the opposite of what they expected, which was it made so you had, well, we found out Saudi Arabia, and you and I talked about this last week, the number of countries that said, no, we're not going to cooperate. We don't want this happening. And privately, Saudi Arabia was telling the president, go, which was interesting because then the Democrats went, well, we're doing it because Saudi Arabia wants to. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh.
It's, you know, look, there needs to be a full display of the cooperation of other Arab nations in the region. That's important for sure. But when the story hit about how Saudi Arabia really put the pressure on them, you know, externally they were saying, "Oh no, we don't." You know, I'm wagging my finger. Oh, we don't want this, and blah blah blah, and we're going to stay out of it. And then internally, they were pressuring the administration, saying, "Look, You need to get this done. Because the reality of those other Arab nations is this, and especially since Iran responded the way they did, now you have other regional nations, the ones that were targeted in response, and Iran tried to come out with a statement saying, no, we were just going after American interests in those countries. We weren't going after your country. They were saying, basically, the response was, you know what, we have a right to defend our country, and we don't care that you were going after American targets. You're targeting our nation, and we're going to defend our nation. That's a turning point in this whole thing.
Oh, it's huge.
That could be massive if indeed this keeps going the right direction from the weekend, and that momentum is there. But also what you pointed out, the targets that were hit, the type of targets that were hit, you've disabled a great part of their Navy. You've disabled a great part of, and that.
Oh, their Navy, from what I hear, is gone.
Is
no
pretty
Navy.
much gone because their naval command was wiped out too. So they don't really have a response there. You're seeing when you see the fact that Israel went after Hezbollah because as Hezbollah was sending rockets. I don't know that was strictly a response to their sponsor state being hit. As Hezbollah, I think, may have been ordered, look, you've got to send whatever you can because we're crippled here. We've got very little now based on how badly we've been damaged here. And I think that's, Iran looking at the reality of this all. And the question is, can you get it to the point, something you and I have been talking about, when you talk about the state within a state, this 4,000, and they pointed out over the weekend, and I surmised, I thought, well, it has to be beyond that 4,000. There's probably tens of thousands connected to the 4,000, which you could easily, that would be logical. It wouldn't be necessarily limited to those 4,000 very loyal state within a state actors that were part of Iran still existing. I mean, without that, they probably would have imploded quite some time ago. But you look at how now the writing is on the wall. You have nothing, and this campaign is going to last as long as it takes, according to President Trump. And what do? Because you don't have the weapons and you don't have the proxies that you had before. And that's the question going forward, is can you break the will of those who were previously loyal, and how deep have they gotten? I mean, we've seen the reports of how many in the leadership that they have killed. Ahmadinejad, the former president, he was targeted for very good reason. You look at the entire structure of the regime of Iran, and it wasn't, in this case, just cutting off the head of the snake. Yes, that happened, and the Ayatollah is no longer in power, which, when you think about, he's no longer living. When you think about that for all of us that go back to the very beginnings of this whole thing, roughly 50 years, this is incredible. But as you mentioned during the pre-show meeting, there's a ton of work to be done still. There's a lot of moving parts to this whole thing for it to be successful. If this overall mission is successful, it changes things in the Middle East for our lifetime and possibly far beyond that. Because if you look at the way that other Arab nations have come together and the Abraham Accords, the cooperation by Saudi Arabia, and the fact that other nations, and it largely is generational, but it's also the fact that if you want to survive, America has the best oil game in terms of what we have in reserves on our soil. We their ability back in the day when Ahmadinejad was in power to say death to America or death to Israel and have the markets just go crazy, the oil markets go crazy over that, are over. There's impact. You see it, in fact, with the oil prices over the weekend. But
yeah, Brent, I think last I saw, and I haven't checked here in the last, I'll check here.
About 5.5%.
Brent crude.
Yeah.
And then West Texas.
About the same, about 5.
Okay, last I saw
percent.
it went up like 10, then came down to 7, so it's down to 5.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at it when I first heard it. Well, first off, Gavin Newsom's post.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, there's no self-awareness, I swear, with Democrats at all.
No.
Gas prices haven't been above $5 for a while now.
Yeah.
Trump has taken us to war, and now it may go above $5 a gallon.
Yeah, as
and
the
I'm
governor of California.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how tone deaf are you by mentioning that, well, we're hanging around $5, but we don't want to go over $5. I'm like, oh, shut up.
Yeah, and both prices on Brent and West Texas are now back above 7%. But if you look at that, if you look at $5 a barrel for Brent, okay, and $4.92 up, $4.92 up, $5.59 for Brent, $4.92 Brent, because that's what comes out of Iran. But West Texas oil up nearly $5 a barrel. Something like this years ago, it would be a much greater impact.
It might be $30 or $40 a barrel that it would go up that quickly.
Yes.
And but that, you make it a great point. You were a little bit younger than you're just a year or two younger than I am, 10 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, I go all the way back to the late 70s with Iran and clearly understand it as you do, because then in the 80s and 90s, we went through everything. You understand that this is something that's almost a half century long with the United States.
My dad's position in the Air Force did not allow me to be ignorant on this issue because we had so many Iranian pilots at Laughlin Air Force Base.
Yeah, that's right. You told me you remember that, don't you?
I was standing at the gate as a young SP Explorer, which was a program that young people could join. And I was an SP Explorer standing at the gate of Laughlin Air Force Base the day that the busloads of Iranian pilots left Laughlin Air Force Base. And, of course, my dad explained to me more, what was going on. I was fully aware of it because my dad obviously had to stay informed. And so it was something even at that age I really couldn't escape if I wanted to. And it was critical in understanding that, because there were two things. The Iran hostage crisis and the Cold War were very much in play. Mm-hmm. And then you looked at the 1980 election, and then, is anybody wondering, I mean, I wasn't old enough to vote then. I did vote for President Reagan for his second term. But you look at the entire equation that was there, and there were some pretty significant threats. I wasn't part of the duck and cover, teaching children to hide under their school desks Cold War era. I wasn't part of that. I was a little bit younger, but still the Cold War being there. And my dad explaining why it was so important, basically, to keep your head on a swivel, not necessarily for me as a 12 or 13-year-old, but I mean, as a nation, they were. And of course, my dad had to, in charge of security for this massive NATO training facility. And those things, again, are etched into your being. That was something I will never forget. And as you go on, this is why when President Trump decided to bomb the nuclear site for Iran, that in and of itself was oh my gosh, I can't believe it happened. Because when you talk about bombing Iran, that's something that had been thrown around, almost became a bit of a joke. Not that people didn't think it, that they didn't want it to happen to take out Iranian leadership. But you would try getting into a conversation. We kind of had a similar conversation last week, right? What do? Well, you're not going to trust that the Ayatollah is just going to go into exile and not have any influence, right? If he wanted to get on a plane with, I don't know, 1,000 other people, a few planes with 1,000 other people as loyalists and go live in Siberia or Russia, whatever part of Russia, as was the rumor, and you're not going to trust them on a nuclear deal. Everybody was, well, this isn't about regime change. Yeah, it was about, I saw Lindsey Graham on Meet the Press. This isn't about regime change. Then he went on to talk about how it was about regime change. And by the way, I think he did a good job, but it's something you can't get around because you saw the story. There was a talking points text messaging call on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, with all the surrogates that were going to be on the Sunday shows, including Lindsey Graham. And that's kind of the line you have to take. It's not about regime change, but it's about regime change.
Of course it was about regime change.
And here's why it's important when you think about it. The Ayatollah, the regime in Iran, is this hardline regime that is that last massive brick wall to break through to get to a new era of the Middle East. And that's quite possibly what we're headed for. And if that happens, if this overall mission in that way happens, it is going to be written about for a long, long time.
The only thing you can say, the technical thing, that it's not about regime change, is it's not the United States that's going to set up the government.
Yes, and he made that point. Lindsey Graham did make that point repeatedly.
Right.
Yes.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. You should only use it in good driving conditions, during daylight hours, and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. You want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Here, Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, I saw yesterday Tim Kaine on Fox News Sunday. It was the first thing that I watched on Sunday. I turned it on. He said, this illegal war. Let's discuss that.
Yeah.
We'll do that coming up following the bottom of the hour. We have time. I thought we only had a couple of seconds. And were you like me when you saw that Trump, because your first instinctual reaction was, what? That Trump offered Iran free nuclear fuel forever as part of the deal. And when you first read it, you're like, what are you talking, Iran free? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, he was offering something that he knew they wouldn't accept. And if they wouldn't accept that, then the negotiations were never going to get anywhere.
Right.
And it was like, no, we still want to retain the power to do our own stuff with nuclear weapons. He goes, no. We'll give you all the free nuclear power forever that you want.
Yeah.
When they didn't agree to that, you're like, okay.
He gave
nowhere to
them
go.
an out, proving that it's not about power. It's not about, that kind of power.
Yeah.
It never was.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Relief Factor Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I said this over the weekend talking to a bunch of different people that said, "What do you expect to see?" And I said, "What I expect to see is, number one, you're going to see Iranian-Americans celebrating in the streets." And here it is right here. Here we go. Now you've got these Iranian-Americans dancing signs, "We stand with Trump," American flags and Iranian flags together.
And using the song from his rallies,
Right.
The Village People YMCA is the song from all of his rallies.
And I said this when the Democrats immediately jumped out and said, "This is illegal, it's horrible," and everything else. And I said, they're going to be on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
Now, there's still a lot of, besides the military action, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, you've got a bunch of different opposition groups, really two main opposition groups. They all want the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be any problem of them uniting together.
Right.
There shouldn't be.
Right.
If, and these are opposition groups that are outside of the country. The former Shah's son, former member of the parliament that have a group, and they're two strong groups that want to bring a secular democracy, a secular republic, which is under the umbrella of democracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Republican form of government, which means no Democrats allowed. No, Republican form of government is a representative government of the people.
Yeah.
But with the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
And so, look, I mean, you look at Iran, a very highly educated society.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just like when I went down, never forget when I visited the Alamo a few years ago, and the impact, as they talked about the impact that the Constitution of the United States had on Central American and South American countries way back then, way back in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was like, whoa, wow. I didn't know that at that particular time. People do look at the Constitution of the United States. We know Democrats hate it, but you look around the world, and this is where, again, you look at, what these opposition groups are looking at, and what are they looking at? What is the one thing we said is the core of the Constitution, the most important part of the Constitution, and it's not the Bill of Rights. Every time I say that, I know people go, "What do you mean it's not the Bill of Rights?" There's something greater than the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights doesn't exist if you don't have the separation of powers.
Something that Scalia wrote about, and it was a brilliant writing, and you look at the basics, and that's it, the foundation. If you don't have a true separation of powers, and from that, what stems from that, right? Because that then is the long-lasting foundation of the Constitution, what holds everything together. And there are other nations that are envious. Not that they're going to become the United States. I don't know how much of a cultural shift there will be in our lifetime. I think there will be some. Again, if this mission is completed and accomplished. You look at the people of Iran who want to have a say-so. They want to choose their government. They want, as a people, to run their country.
You need police force and an armed forces that because this was brought up over the weekend. How do you do this if the new government of the people isn't armed?
Right.
In fact, that was talked about the fact I forgot where it was. So many things. I get like you, like everybody else. There's like a million things in your head.
Yeah.
But there's some discussion where Democrats were saying, but the people aren't armed there, and so the government could take over. And they were arguing for the citizens having guns in Iran, and they were liberals, and it was like, oh my gosh, it was pretty funny. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. But the separation of powers is really the entire thing here when we get back to what the president did, just like last week with tariffs. Mm-hmm. And, when Bessent was out there and Trump was out there and they're saying, we can't believe that I can limit trade, but I can't charge a tariff.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. I mean, come on. Well, that's because that's what the Constitution dictates.
Right.
Because the Constitution doesn't say you can tax.
Right.
It says you can regulate.
Right.
If you wish to regulate from another country, you can do that in an emergency.
Yep, you can sanction.
Right. But you can't, but unless we're at war, you can't tax.
Right.
And you can't, or Congress gives you a limited role for a limited amount of time, whatever, which has been approved, but you can't tax. You're the executive branch, and you're taxing American companies, and you can't tax American companies. It's that simple.
Right.
And, you can't, only Congress can do that. That's a separation of powers. And as I've said, and we were very disappointed in so many people, Republicans who claim they're conservative, that's just, jettison one of the most important parts of the Constitution, which is your elected representatives are the ones that tax you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
your elected representative, and that's what's in the Constitution. Now, on the other side here, with the separation of powers, Tim Kaine, it's illegal. It's not illegal. And if you look at it, the War Powers Act is a political law. It's not a criminal law. It's a political law that has no enforcement of the Supreme Court.
Right.
None.
It's not constitutional.
There isn't one, right. There isn't one, not one administration, Democrat or Republican, that believes that they have to abide by the War Powers Act that Congress passed as law. Why? It's very simple. The Constitution gives the president, he's the commander-in-chief. He gets to set the rules and regulations if he believes there's a foreign danger to the United States. If you wish to change that, you need to have a constitutional amendment with specific rules and regulations for the president. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Now, it's political in the fact that the president went to the Gang of Eight.
Yeah.
They let them know what was going on.
Right.
He advised Congress. That is a smart move to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a smart move as the president did, by the way, very quickly. I probably could spend an hour on this, though. I said very quickly. When I woke up in a hotel room in Buffalo, New York. And funny thing is, I had left the TV on in the hotel room, fell asleep with the TV on.
Right, yeah.
When I woke up.
To be clear, you flew there, you were there deliberately. You didn't just black out and wake up in a hotel in Buffalo.
Yes. I was drinking at a bar
so I woke
in
up
Arlington,
in a hotel in Buffalo.
And next thing I know, I wake up in a hotel in Buffalo, and my wallet's gone.
I don't know.
No, I went visit Dad, watch my great nephew play ball, and so I wake up and the infomercial's on. I'm like, oh, what's this? What are they selling here? All of a sudden, I look at my phone. What?
Yeah.
And then I turned immediately on, and I saw the 8-minute speech. He covered everything. Now,
yeah,
we are the ones that have said the biggest problem with this administration is words, how the president communicates. That was a perfect messaging from the president.
It really was. I was also away and also in a hotel room, but I felt like I was about to be able to go to sleep, which is rare for me in a hotel room. And then it started. It was 12:15, 12:30 our time, Central. And here we go. And I was up. I never went to sleep. It was, okay, here we are. Made for a very long day, but it's kind of, what happens, because my thought was they're out to get the Ayatollah. They wouldn't have done this. It was daylight there in Tehran. And I thought, okay, they've got word on where the Ayatollah is. They're going after strategic sites, but they're going after the Ayatollah. Now, here's the question. Is he in a bunker and the sub-question from that, is there a bunker strong enough to withstand what we have available to us in terms of weaponry? And then at the end of it, it was very clear. And then when Iran came out and made the statement, it was like, okay, nobody has any questions now, because Iran had first said, no, everybody's okay. And, of course, that wasn't the case.
But his speech was perfect. But getting back to the legal stuff here, and I saw everybody, playing back and forth. Well, the Justice Department guidance from Obama, and this happened here in the Justice Department, and that to me is blah 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 blah. The president can do almost anything to protect the United States. If Congress doesn't like it, they can impeach him, remove him from office.
Yeah.
Use the 25th Amendment immediately, or cut off all funding.
Right.
Other than that, they cannot dictate to the president how to go after. Now, there is Justice Department guidelines, and we know all over the place. And court, well, then maybe that's a guideline that should be. But the fact is, Constitution doesn't dictate that at all.
No.
And so I was reading here with Andrew McCarthy. He goes, this is why, for example, that's actually the Constitution. But let's take the politics here. And reading Andrew McCarthy, administrations of both parties in rationalizing unilateral action now routinely rely on the Obama Justice Department guidance from 2011. That's when President Obama used force in Libya without congressional authorization in the absence of any threat to the United States, imminent or otherwise, because the Democrats were saying it has to be imminent, which means they're going to attack you now. No, it doesn't. It never had to be.
No.
Obama sought to prevent what the administration said would, in the absence of American military intervention, be a humanitarian catastrophe. Obama officials added to the mix the promotion of regional stability and the credibility of the UN. The Security Council had authorized a no-fly zone. If those are vital American interests, then there is no limitation or unilateral presidential war-making, and many, including President Trump, believe this to be the case. Well, it is the case.
Yeah.
Now, you may be wrong in doing what you do. What Congress can do is remove you from office, or cut off the money completely, or use the 25th Amendment.
Right.
That's the recourse, and the Founding Fathers knew that, because you need one person to decide what the threat is.
Yep.
And so they look and they go, well, the Justice Department guidance, which doesn't matter what the Justice Department guidance is. It's what the Constitution is. But if they're going to use that for political purposes, it's Obama saying there's going to be a humanitarian crisis somewhere in the world if we don't do something. Well, then there are no rules. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
As the Constitution basically dictates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look at this situation, and it is, the War Powers Act might as well be called, hey, we're going to change the Constitution without actually changing the Constitution Act.
Right.
And you can't do that.
Now, I think that what's in there are good political suggestions for the president.
Bush, Kristen Walker brought it up with Lindsey Graham. Bush 43 went to Congress, and because she had brought up a question just before that about the War Powers Act, and Lindsey Graham accurately answered and said, "No, the War Powers Act is unconstitutional." And then he made the point after the other question.
I didn't hear that. He said that.
He said that.
Whoa.
He said the War Powers Act is unconstitutional.
Whoa.
And he also said after the Bush question, Bush went to Congress. Bush solicited that approval from Congress. If President Trump wanted to do that, he could do that. He doesn't have to do that.
Right. We are Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I'm telling you, the best thing that I saw yesterday, well, one of the best things, there were numerous best things that I saw on X was, and I'm just scrolling down to see if I can get it here. Oh, man, where is it here? Oh, Mark Halperin. because Mark Halperin put out the New York Times headline that said Ayatollah Khamenei, hardline cleric who made Iran a regional power, is dead at 86. And, compared it to a headline, Führer Adolf Hitler, dog-loving artist who made Germany a world power, is dead at 56. Gerald Baker, from one of the editors of the Wall Street Journal, said nothing wrong with that headline. It is an accurate summary and conveys no implication of moral approval of the man. Mark Halperin writes back, respectively dissent, quote, Jeffrey Dahmer, hungry Wisconsin man, passes away is accurate as well, but it also implicitly conveys at the minimum moral tolerance, if not full, on approval.
Right.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here we go. This was fascinating. We'll play the audio in a second, but we want to read the text of it first because it's pretty low volume, but you can hear it.
Okay.
Everybody covered it. It was all over X. Newsbusters had it. A hot mic moment during a live feed of protests in Austin, Texas, both against and in support of the joint U.S. Israeli strikes on Iran, gives us a rare inside glimpse into the political inner workings of the newsroom. In the process, we watched a reporter resist those pressures and, report. CBS's Austin's Vinny Martirano is told to de-emphasize the rally in support of Operation Epic Fury, which he then refuses to do so before going live.
Yeah.
A crew member hands Vinny the phone, which shows him a text message. He says, "What does that mean?" The crew member says, "It means they don't want us to focus on this." He said, Vinny Martirano then said, "All right, well, I am." And then you hear the rally, "Thank you, Trump, thank you, Trump, thank you, Trump." And then he goes live and says, "All right, there are a lot of mixed emotions across Austin about the joint attack between the United States and Israel against Iran that happened earlier this morning. Some people, like this group behind me, are thanking Trump and the United States for following through with this attack against Iran, while other people across the city say there needs to be more peace in the Middle East." Whoa.
By the way, sounds like a balanced report to me, right?
Yeah.
It's Austin, a
Right.
very liberal, for those that don't know, aren't familiar with Texas, very liberal part of Texas, also the capital of Texas. But that would be an accurate report. We can't have that. Don't emphasize the celebrating of this operation in Iran. Don't you dare. Wow.
But here it is. I wanted to read the text first, and then you can hear it. Again, the volume isn't that loud, but you can understand it.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Here we
All right.
What does that mean? It means they don't want us to focus on this. All right. Well, I am.
There you have it.
Well, I am. And then he
What does
does
this mean? They don't want you to focus on this.
Yep.
All right. Well, I am. And good for him for, in that moment, I haven't seen any other reports by him, but at least in that moment, acting on the principles of real journalism. It's if you're going to cover this, that's because we already know there are people that are unhappy with it. You could include Rand Paul.
Yeah.
From the Republican Party, There are lots of people that are unhappy with it. The Ipsos poll that came out yesterday, only 25% of the American people support this. And it's like, no, on a preemptive attack, it's hard to get support. You and I have talked about this over the years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Insider advantage, though,
Yeah,
which we believe is a very approval 54%, disapproval 37%.
Right, but in responding to when I'm reading the Ipsos poll, I'm thinking to myself, okay, no, assume it's accurate, right? I don't think it was 25%. I don't think it was ever that low. But I would think 40, 50%, somewhere in that range on a preemptive strike. And it would the approval probably tended to be older people, older demographics, because we remember the long history here, decades in the making of the Iranian regime. And now you look at this situation, and you and I talked about the 9/11. Had there been a preemptive strike, it would have been much different. Going into Afghanistan in the fall of 2001, there was still a great deal of euphoria is not the right word, but we need to go get the people who are responsible type of domestic support that a president and any administration wants, because that also drives the political support on Capitol Hill for the funding of such efforts and so on. But there was and you saw it. You could see it. Now, clearly, it changed over the years, but it is not, a preemptive strike. Had they gone in the summer, in August of 2001, and struck some sites in trying to kill Osama bin Laden, and it was a major event. Because keep in mind, Afghanistan in its infancy, that effort was a CIA mission before it became a big military mission. And then, after a while, it was full Pentagon involvement. But you look at that whole thing, the public support was there. Going to war is not preemptively especially, is not one of those things that a president is going to get 100% approval on. Nowhere close.
Well, you and I remember one more point, the 9/11 Commission.
Mm-hmm.
The 9/11 Commission, and you, I don't know if we were working together when that came out, but we both had the same opinion on it, which was they said we need to make sure that the intelligence gets to those in power, that the intelligence was there. We knew they were doing something, and we need to have better intelligence. And the media focused on that.
Right. Yeah.
But what they didn't focus on was the 9/11 Commission saying, well, what do you do with that intelligence?
Right.
If you have the intelligence and you don't act on it.
Right.
Because as the 9/11 Commission said, both Democrats and Republicans, what was needed to stop 9/11 was preemptive strikes.
Right.
And you and I both said, but the American public doesn't go for preemptive strikes.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you're saying is 9/11 was inevitable because the American public will always be against a preemptive strike. Now, that is little bit different, not entirely because you had the first World Trade Center attack in the early 90s.
Yes, in 93.
Right. So we knew what was going on.
Right.
But the American politicians, played down on it. Iran, we have known about. We've known about Iran now for almost a half a century.
Yeah, yeah.
This has been going on. We are very, very familiar with what Iran wants to do. But when you think about it, when you juxtapose the difference between what Trump is doing and what the Democrats are doing, understand that the Democrats, as we had said over and over again, and the public didn't care. The Democrats did not care that Biden was ensuring that Iran could fund their terrorists to attack the United States and make sure that their proxy terrorist groups had money to attack Israel on October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole thing of, well, oh, we're watching where the money goes. And remember, the whole money is fungible and all that.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we shouldn't have. That was absolutely reprehensible. And then Obama, the pallets of money.
Right.
Democrats were ensuring that Iran had money, which increased their odds of successfully attacking United States interests, United States bases, United States troops.
Yep.
Around the world and in the Middle East.
Yep.
And Biden and Obama gave them damn money to do it.
October 7th.
And
it's widely believed October 7th was greatly funded because of that.
Yeah.
Hamas was empowered because of that.
And nobody debates that fact that the money goes to them. Democrats just didn't talk about it.
Right.
But when confronted, they knew they didn't go, well, we're making sure that the money doesn't get to but it doesn't need that exact money doesn't need to. You can fund them here and they'll take other money that's funding that. They don't need the money for that and they'll move it over there.
Right.
You don't give them that money.
Right. They can show you receipts on, we did this. Look at all the humanitarian things that we did with this money. We're not funding our proxies. Meanwhile, their proxies are driving around in limos.
It's just, when you see the difference between the Trump administration, and I'm not necessarily saying Republicans. This is on, you look at this and you look at the Trump foreign policy, which we have said he's built a tremendous amount of credibility. And we said, Trump's going to wimp out here because we said, I don't know that. And I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt because he has had a tremendous amount of credibility when it comes to foreign relations. And we said, and confronting our enemies. And I was reading somewhere the other day that said, that he probably looks back at the first term and says, I shouldn't have allowed this to happen. I should have done it in my first term. And that's fine. If somebody's willing to learn, that's cool. That's fine with me. And Trump was willing to learn who our enemies are, and just said, well, no, remember, the funding stops. We're not going to do it. Sanctions are back. The funding stops. For the United States to sit there and say, you can sell your oil and we're going to make sure you get the money back. And, we're going to hope that you take this money and it's all for productive purposes and we're going to monitor that money. Well, you give them that money. They use it there and they just transfer the other money that they get from other sources that they would not have, would not be available to fund their proxy terrorist and use that because you're giving them money over here.
It's when a lot of that whole debate is when a lot of people learn the definition of the word fungible.
Exactly. So, it's just when you see what the Democrats did and to criticize what's going on, here with Trump, we all knew this was going to happen. But as I said, I was getting, once I woke up, everybody was texting me. Interesting thing. My great nephew played his last high school basketball game and they lost in the playoffs and he was devastated, just devastated, absolutely devastated. And so I call him the next morning and I said, hey, I was going to call you earlier, but we went to war. And he goes, yeah, I heard about that. Never mentioned basketball. He called me again later on the day. We probably spent an hour. He wanted to know everything about Iran, everything about the Constitution, whether it was constitutional or not. I got off the phone. It's like, wow, that's awesome.
No, it's great.
His mind's completely off his loss,
right?
And he wants information as to what's going on. And I swear he knows more about the separation of powers after last week with tariffs and now this with Democrats. He knows more about the separation of powers than probably a significant portion of Americans.
Yeah. Well, think about that. It's because it's the opposite of willful ignorance, right? It's willful learning.
Or tribalism, too.
Yeah, and willful learning is great. And young minds, by the way, I think have the natural aptitude to want to learn things, to want to know things. The willful ignorance comes when, I'll just shut that down and not pay attention to that part of it, and which is part of the indoctrination. but your great-nephew is looking to learn something and find out. Because, look, whether he's part of the conversation, whether anybody's part of the conversation or not, they want to know what is true, what they're seeing. And there's so much going on right now. I mean, it was just boom, 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 boom. Exactly what you would expect in the wake of such an event. You're having to decipher. So imagine being at that age. Here's somebody who's going to be entering the world as an adult soon and being at that age and wanting to know. And it's a good thing.
Yeah, I told him as a young kid, I said, don't agree with me because I'm your uncle and you love me.
I've always told my kids that.
Do not agree with it. I said, make me prove my point, just like you make everybody else prove their point.
Well, my second half was agree with me because I control the money.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I've always told my kids, you don't have to think the way I think.
Yeah.
I believe you should have the facts. And once you have the facts, you'll decide on your own, knowing they were smart enough.
But when, the Democrats' response to it yesterday, we have more audio coming up, by the way. I went, wow.
Yeah.
They're on the wrong side of history here. I mean, I hate that term to begin with because Democrats always use it.
Yeah.
But they are.
They are.
They are on the wrong side of history. There's still tremendous challenges. But no matter what happens with the opposition groups, and we'll go through the opposition groups here in just a little bit, whoever comes to power, you have, when I saw Iran the other day, we're going to announce who the replacement for Khamenei is very soon. I'm like, I wouldn't want that to be me. Right. And then they talked about it yesterday. Trump talked about it. He goes, we don't know who's left to take over. We've got, and it's what you and I talked about. You got to hit level after level after level after level of the regime. Because when you say the regime, they go, well, the regime's still in power. What they're saying is not that the Ayatollah is dead, but we talked about this last week, all the research that's been done, the intelligence of how widespread his regime is and how many levels you have to destroy, which could be hundreds and even thousands of people you have to kill or say, as the president says over and over again, lay down your arms now, surrender now, and I'll give you immunity. As I did say, though, over the weekend to some people, the president can give you immunity. The Iranian people may not.
Yes, there's the conundrum.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
We are Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
The number of farms in the U.S. is down year over year, per USDA's latest count. But what about the total of landed farms in our country? According to National Agricultural Statistics Service Administrator Joseph Parsons,
we see that there are just under 874 million acres in production agriculture. And that includes everything from range land to highly cultivated land that we might think of as land and farms. And that's down 2.5 million acres from 2024.
Like total farms, landed farms by sales class decreases in all categories year over year, except for the $1 million or more sales category.
That average farm size across all sales classes, so in total, is about 469 acres, and that's up 3 acres from 2024. That represents a lot of very small farms and also some larger farms in the mix as well. So the average farm size is probably a little different than what you might think of in a Midwest production environment where the farms tend to be quite a bit larger.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Of course, you got to go to the Babylon Bee then, with everything happening over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
And so here's one headline: Iranian generals kicking themselves for not just meeting over Zoom.
Yeah.
British citizens politely ask if they can be liberated from radical Islam next. Oh, did you see that they're going to allow bases now, some bases for the U.S. to operate out of?
Right.
That will target ballistic missiles.
Right.
And then finally, I read this one. I go, but this could actually happen. Mamdani Mandami in New York City orders flags at One World Trade Center flown half-staff to mourn the Ayatollah.
That could actually be.
I know. It's like...
Quit it, Seth Dillon. You're doing real news again.
That's...
over there at the Babylon Bee. Because that could be that could end up being an accurate prediction. I mean, in the first hours, Mamdani puts out this post, condemning Trump for the attacks and everything else, and it's like, not a good look.
Yeah,
not a good look at all.
Catch Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. This is more audio. This is Israelis and Iranians together dancing and celebrating side by sides on the streets of London. We have audio here. Thanks. We have talked a lot about, on a number of topics, just how the Democrats in this country have no self-awareness and no awareness at all, really, of any type of situation. Did you see Mark Kelly's statement where he went after Trump and everything? This is because Trump ripped up the nuclear agreement and everything else. He's killing himself as a potential presidential candidate.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I thought of immediately when I started seeing the reaction of Democrats, and then Sunday morning news shows when I saw Tim Kaine on there, and I really wondered, did they put Tim Kaine on there because they said, let's get someone who's going nowhere?
Yeah, somebody who's not the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because and we had mentioned the president's 8-minute speech. It covered everything. He said, we don't want anything from you. We're liberating you. Stay in, be safe. When this is over, Iranian citizens take over your government. My God, I mean, that is just, I've never seen anything like that. I saw, and we've been critical of the president. We believe he deserves criticism on foreign policy and everything that led up to this. And I'll say this, too. You and I, not happy with Hegseth, especially with the whole signal scandal.
Right.
He was wrong.
Right.
He was absolutely wrong when that bombing with it was in Yemen, right? It was at the Houthis,
right.
I believe.
The Houthis, right.
And he used signal to send information about what was going on beforehand, and he said there was no top secret information. You assume everything when you're in a situation like that is top secret. We were extremely critical of him and said at the time he should be fired for doing so, for doing it, and then making the excuse. But I'll tell you what, on the things that he has done when it comes to however it's being done, he is the head of the Pentagon. And he, the Joint Chiefs, the American military, the president, they are putting together these military actions that are as precise as anything that the American government has ever done. And it's success after success after success. And you and I went through earlier in the show what was needed, the synchronization that was needed between Israel and the United States, and the assets positioned all around the world to strike at that point, the technology that we have to hack into their radar, hack into their broadcast, hack into their apps. I mean, you're talking about a military exercise as well as an exercise in getting into their communications to communicate with the people inside the government and the people of Iran as to what was going on. And that's why when I saw the president's speech and the first question I got, what's going to happen? I said, well, what's going to happen is in the next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to see Iranian-Americans on the street, probably first.
Yep.
Just because there's more free media here.
Right.
That can get it. And then hopefully you'll see some things from Iran. But what you're going to see is Iranian flags. You're going to see American flags. And you're going to see people thanking Trump. Iranian-Americans and Iranians thanking Trump. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, these Democrats, they can't, once the American people understand that this is an exercise to liberate the people of Iran and at the same time protect the United States and bring peace to the Middle East. It's over for the Democrats on this issue. They lose complete and total credibility on foreign policy and the Middle East completely. And I was like, when I was watching, let me just see if I have it here. When I was watching Senator Mark Kelly, I'm thinking to myself, I go, you're an idiot. Just shut up. Don't say anything.
Right.
Just don't say anything. You come out if somebody asks you and say, look, we're in military operations, and I hope that the people. I always wish that all people can be liberated around the world, and leave it at that. Right. But he came out, and let me just see if I have it here. Oh yeah, okay. Here we go. Ready?
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Hey folks, this morning, the United States, this administration launched a major attack on Iran. As I see this, there's no real plan here. And often these things do not go the way people think they do, especially the people that don't serve in the military, like this president. Often they're the ones that think every solution is to drop a bomb. And by the way, this is the guy that got us into this mess anyway. He, in his first term, he ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, which then put the Iranians on a path to further enrich uranium. Did that strike this summer that operationally was a success. Strategically, as we see now, not so much. So I'm really concerned about troops on the ground in Iran. We don't need that. We don't need more dead Americans and trillions of dollars of our tax dollars spent on this. I think the president owes the American people an answer on what is the strategy here? What is the goal? Is it getting rid of the Iranians' nuclear capability, which, by the way, this administration said was obliterated last summer? Or is it getting rid of ballistic missiles? Or is it regime change? We need an answer, and we need a vote in the United States Congress.
There you go.
The president doesn't have to get the vote in the United States Congress. Not everybody gets to be in the war room. Separation of powers again comes to the top here and reigns over everything.
Well, yeah, and the Iran nuclear deal.
There's no evidence that it curtailed anything in terms of their ambition on nukes.
It gave them a path to a nuclear weapon.
Well, it gave them cover.
Right. And
money.
And this is where Mark Kelly comes across as an idiot, just like he did. There's three things that sit in my mind just from the last 2 months. When he sat on there with the reporter and, don't we need to get rid of billionaires? Yes, we need to get rid of billionaires. Shut up, you idiot.
I mean,
what an idiot. We need to get rid of
far beyond radical. And
then the pictures of him at the State of the Union address.
Man.
Wrong on every issue. And then here, the Iran nuclear deal was a horrible deal. Trump was absolutely right for tearing the damn thing apart.
Well, and what Kelly didn't bring up here is the money.
Yeah.
That was returned to Iran.
Yeah. Where was Kelly then?
Right.
Where was Kelly when Biden was ensuring that we fund the terrorist groups that attacked the United States?
Right.
Where was he?
And clearly funded October 7th.
Yeah.
You talk about empty. This guy, I mean, seriously.
For an astronaut,
he's
really empty inside.
No, he
really is. It shows you
There's nothing going on upstairs.
It shows you, and this is going to be my new band name, it shows you that astronauts can be idiots.
Astronauts can be idiots. I like that.
My new band name.
Yeah.
We're going to play punk.
ACBI.
ACBI.
Right? Across the top of CBG. ACBI at CBGB's. Right? Because it is just, it's everything you just heard there was garbage.
I know.
Complete garbage.
And I'm thinking to myself, after the president said it, by the way, the president, you need to communicate the message all the time, by the way, as we have said.
Right.
But somebody like me, and maybe it's unfair to use my judgment from somebody my age who knows the entire half century of what has happened, or maybe somebody 30. Well, you saw that only 23% of Americans know where Iran is on the map.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
The people that thought that Iran was Ireland. And then there were people that had it, in the Atlantic Ocean. Like they pinpointed on where is it? And there's like some in the Indian Ocean. It's like,
right.
Oh my gosh. I think
the tiny set of islands in the Pacific. That's Hawaii.
I will say this, though. Nobody put Iran in the middle of the United States. There wasn't anybody that put Iran in Iowa. It's got an eye.
Is it east of Florida? I mean, but it is the willful ignorance. And again, it brings out the dry erase board protester. Oh, we're not on ice anymore. We're on don't bomb Iran, or we stand with the regime. I don't know what's going to be their chant.
Oh, and the best one was he did this because of the Epstein files. That didn't last too long.
Yeah.
That didn't go anywhere, but I saw that one.
No. It really, again, the ignorance, and this is, someone like Mark Kelly, I'm more prone to believe that his ignorance in approaching his constituents and anybody else who will listen to his gibberish isn't just about wanting to keep people stupid. He's not smart himself. So he's just repeating, whatever lame ideas are going on in that brain of his. This is, again, you look at the situation where it is. There is no doubt there's a great deal of work ahead. But the precision of what they have done so far with Iran is mind-boggling.
The precision and the message that they put out as to why they're doing it. Here's Britt Hume. Let me play this audio cut talking about it yesterday. Here we go.
The public reaction is likely to be favorable. And I think these Democrats are kind of trapped because they exist in a party whose membership overwhelmingly despises Donald Trump. It's been called Trump derangement syndrome, and there's something to that. And the result is that these Democrats, with rare exceptions, John Fetterman today, of course, was the one we just heard from, are opposed to this because they feel they must be, that they feel their job in life is to resist and oppose Donald Trump in every way, almost no matter what he does. So I think that accounts for the political reaction on the Democratic side here. Now, over time, those who are critical may feel vindicated if things start to go badly, but if they don't, they're going to be stuck with this. They're going to be the people that it will be argued didn't want to take this evil Iranian regime down. If the Iranian machine goes down and things turn out well in Iran, that will be a burden around their necks.
Which is true. Now, there's a lot of things that are out of the president's hands, and we'll get into that here coming up. And that's can the opposition parties do it? Can they actually bring a peaceful Iran? But I look at it this way: either way, the goal is to get this current regime out, and also not have the ballistic missiles, which gives us more peace.
Right.
Get rid of the nuclear capabilities completely. It's all the three. It's the three things that the president is doing, and so The one thing that he's not in control of is how it goes, but you have degraded the ability for probably decades, even if the regime stayed in power.
Yes.
I don't believe they are, because they're hitting every single level. And the president said, we'll talk, but we're not stopping until this is done. Then the Iranian foreign minister said, well, we're not going to talk then.
Right. All right. Well, expect
Fine.
more of the same.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, you were just making the case here during the break that the difference here, when you look at a lot of other altercations that we have been in over the years, is that you've got the Middle East backing us now.
Yeah.
You've got Canada. You've got Australia.
Right.
Now, England has come and said, okay, you can start using our bases to start taking out the ballistic missile capabilities of Iran.
Right.
Europe, the
right.
part of Europe, we'll see if they come along, or like Democrats, if this works out.
Right.
That again, they'll be on the losing side of history.
But the other Arab nations in that region being on our side on this is a huge deal.
Yeah.
This is not the U.S. and Israel alone.
It's unprecedented.
And I really believe it goes back to that meeting, the set of meetings and that visit that Trump made to the Middle East when he met with the heads of those nations. That was before bombing Iran's nuclear facility. And I think it was a big deal.
This is Red Eye Radio.